Hello and welcome to the Scale Modelling Cafe and welcome to this week's update. Right, before we get on with that, very exciting, Formula One is back. I've got my McLaren top on today. I think they're going to be near the back and it's going to be quite a frustrating time for quite a few months actually for poor old McLaren. But being a British team, I'm really hoping that they can pull something out the bag and when they bring some updates, they can get them back to where they should be, and that's kind of fighting at the top of the midfield. But I don't know, but I thought I'd put the McLaren top on just to kind of send them good vibes, if you like. Right, on with the channel update then. And part one of this thing went up last Sunday. I hope you enjoyed the little sort of intro. I hope you didn't think it was too long. A little, excuse me, I'll have a little scratch. A little tribute to Robin Olds. I thought I'd throw at the beginning. Something a little bit different, not done that before, but it was fun. Hope you liked that, and I hope you liked the introduction and what I'm aiming to do. I'll give an update. It's sat right there very shortly. Part two of that, of the cockpit, is not going to go up on Sunday. I just haven't had time to edit all the footage and do the narration. That'll be done next week and I'll try and put it up earlier as soon as I can, but you know, sometimes just life gets in the way, and actually I wanted to get the model to a certain stage before kind of downing tools, going to work. I'm away for 4 days coming up, so hence no update on the project, unfortunately, so sorry about that, but it will come. Then one thing that I did put up was the trumpeter video, which I put up, when did I put that up? I put that up yesterday, didn't I? So part two of the trumpeter new release schedule for 23 and 24. Who knows when, what's going to come when, or even if some things are ever going to come, like the 72nd MiG-19. But there we go. So all the things that I missed that weren't in the leak, I've caught up on. That's all the things that leap out of me that I'm quite excited by. And there's quite a lot of stuff in there, and one or two surprises, and one or two very exciting surprises. So pop over and see that if you haven't seen that already. Right, that is the channel update. I might try and do an ICM one actually, if I've got time. We'll have to wait and see. So if I can get that done, maybe I'll whack that up on Sunday. But connectivity there is just crap. And I tried uploading the weekly update last week, and yeah, just the internet is crap up there. So yeah, don't hold your breath, but who knows? Inshallah, as they say in these parts. Okay, the project update then. So the cockpit is finished. Yeah, really nicely detailed from the box, but I used the Quinterset, and the Quinterset is really, really nice. Obviously they were the original 3D printing instrument panels and blah, and it is very nice, but having used the Red Fox one, I much prefer the Red Fox way of doing things, i.e. printed on acrylic, so they're not decals and they're solid and you just peel them off and you just stick them on. The Quinter stuff, you have to just soak the backing, don't dip it in the water, literally just wet some kitchen towel, put the paper down, it'll soak in, and then very soon, few seconds, you can peel it off. It works very well, but it does mean that they're kind of a bit soft and maybe can be distorted if you're not careful. But yeah, really, really good nonetheless. I just prefer Red Fox. The disadvantage with Red Foxes is you can't do seatbelts, whereas you can in the 3D printed decal thing, and I used Quinter's seatbelts on the seats. I'm just wondering whether I could have really, coulda, shoulda, woulda, used the photo etch ones that I bought. I just having a look at them, I just think they're a little bit more refined. The disadvantage is obviously they're a lot more difficult to fold and bend and what have you. So easier to use, the Quinta ones, but I think the final result may have been better if I'd used the Edward ones, but a lot more difficult. And actually there's no guarantee of success using those. There we go. And so that's the cockpit. I've obviously whacked up a few pictures on there and I'm very, very pleased with it. One thing that I do need to do, you'll notice that the cockpit sills are just painted black. I've done that deliberately for a reason. I didn't want to go down the road of weathering all that up and then somehow lose some with handling the model when I come to paint it. If I was going to, I don't really know how I'm going to mask it quite yet. I think what I'm probably going to do is glue the windscreen on, glue the centre section on, and then try and mask that and then paint it up. And I'm just very mindful that I just didn't want to damage any of the weathering. So I will weather the sills right at the very end. Right, construction wise, here we go. She's come together really nicely. The fit is actually really, so far, really very, very nice. Right, the big thing, the spine insert here. I was really worried about that, but actually it just dropped in beautifully. Tiny little hairline gap right at the rear. Literally total of what, 5 to 7 millimeters worth of Mr. Surfacer that went in there and sorted that out. So actually the that whole bit down the back end that I was really very nervous about has worked an absolute treat. I did just run a sanding stick, a hard sanding stick over the top, just to make sure the contours are even. I don't think I even needed to do that, frankly. It was really nice. The bit behind the Wizzo's cockpit stands a little proud. I had to trim it a little bit. Maybe I could have done a little bit more, but I was just worried about losing some of that detail. And actually with the camouflage on and the varnish on over the top and the weathering, you're not going to see that. So that was that. Down at the back end, I've used, for the separate fin cap, I've gone in and used a little bit of the Deluxe Perfect Plastic Putty. That was put in that gap and then cleaned up with a bit of water and a cotton bud. And the nose, now there was a bit of a lip where I'd sanded down the seam. I'd actually sanded it, obviously you're going to just a little bit, or just a hair's breadth, not even that, down a little bit. So the nose cone actually sat a little bit fat. What I should have done is just glued it on and then matched the contours, like what I was going to do with the spine, but actually didn't need to. I thought, no, I don't want to damage any of the detail on there. So I actually sanded a little bit off the nose cone and then ended up sanding a little bit too much. So I had to go back in with a bit of Mr. Surfacer and just kind of restore that. But you won't see that on the final thing. I've also used a little bit of filler on the chin pod. It fit lovely. It's just I removed my finger a little bit too early, released the pressure, so it just kind of lifted up a little bit before the glue set. So that was annoying. That was my fault. Other than that, it's gone together really nicely. There's a little bit of filler just down at the back here. I used super glue and I've actually sanded it flush. There's a little smear of Mr. Surfacer just over the top of the join. The tape's there just to protect some of the surface detail. That'll get sanded back down when I get back next week. Job done. Probably doesn't need it. Belt and braces. And then the other little bit is just this little intake thing just at the base of the fin, which is lovely. Again, I glued it. I followed the instructions. I glued it to the left-hand fuselage half, and then glued the fuselage halves together and it just left a gap at the bottom. I think in hindsight what you can probably do is just glue the fuselage halves together, stick that on, and that would have fit really nice. I did have to match the contours again and then put the spine insert on and just work your way forward essentially. But that was that. The engines are in. The intakes I've made seamless. So they were sprayed white in the two separate halves, then glued together. I then went in with a bit of super glue and talcum powder to eliminate the seams, sanded all of that flush, and then what I did is I got some gloss white, the Gunsanyo stuff, the GX, it's either 1 or 2, whichever it is, the gloss white, and a pipette, and it's really thick, gloopy stuff. And then with the pipette, I just squirted it in and went around and around and around and went in and went in and went in and literally poured paint, neat paint, and it really is gloopy stuff, all in there and let it drain out the bottom. And what that's done is that's completely eliminated any seams and it's smooth as a smooth thing. And I'm really pleased with how that's come out. What I did, the last job, actually, just struggling for words there, the last job was, as you can see, I put the wings on. The wheel wells, they was all pre-painted, they've gone in, then the two top wing halves gone, and there's sort of little oval bits that you've got to sand away. I've done that, and then stuck it on. The fit, again, this is really very nice, very positive. I've already mentioned down the back, that was done with super glue. The wing to fuselage joint is perfect. What I did do is just wedge a scalpel and a paintbrush just inside the gap here at the front, just to push it out a little bit while it bit and it dried on. And finally, you can see just the tape around the nose, just for the sort of bottom bit, the sort of bottom plate that extends forward. And again, the fit is absolutely brilliant there. So overall, I'm really pleased. It's not quite Tamiya, but actually it's not that far off. And it's a bit of a surprise. I wasn't expecting it to be that good. Just one comment on the plastic. It seems quite hard when you kind of feel it, but actually it sounds, when you're sanding it, it sounds as if it's really soft. It's really kind of odd is maybe too strong a word. Different is perhaps better. So you've got to be really careful when sanding that you don't sand off too much, because it would be very easy to do. Right, next job is next week when I get back is the intakes. Now, what I tend to do on Phantom kits is before I do the intake is I would paint the camouflage here around the back seater's cockpit, and then put the intakes on, do any sort of rectification work that I need to do, because getting down in there with the airbrush in that gap is a little bit tricky. Really unfortunate is I don't have any of the dark green for the Southeast Asia camouflage with me. Unfortunately, I ended up getting 2 bottles of the lighter green rather than a light green and a dark green, and I didn't even notice. It's really frustrating. So I've got 2 choices. I could mix my own from a bit of RLM 81, bit of Japanese Navy green, bit like what I did with the Polycarpov I-16. That's quite a close match there. But what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to, if I can, I need to have a look at the instructions, is put the intakes on, see if I can get away without the splitter plate, and then I can paint behind the splitter plate, and then the splitter plate just goes on. I'm not entirely sure whether I'm going to be able to do that. I need to study the instructions. If I can't do that, what I might do is just do everything else, and then just leave the intakes off. I'll start the next project, and then when I come back after Ramadan, it'll be straight back to this, and then I can finish it off. We'll have to wait and see. I don't really know what to do. I'll cross that bridge. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Now, there was something else I was going to mention on this. Now, what was it? Yes. The tailplanes. The tailplanes, the fitment to them is a little bit floppy. But I've got a plan. So here's the tailplanes. Now, I don't know whether you can see that, but there is just a sort of flat tab, and it's quite a big hole. What they should have done is they should have moulded or made a separate piece that you glue on, like a housing for it, to accept this. It's not much more than the width of the plastic. So actually, there is quite a lot of play. What I did is I built up with very thick plastic card a sort of mounting device in there that will wedge in these. I also drilled and then pinned, there's a pin on this one to hold them together, and now I can put them in, and actually it's really very secure. It takes a bit of a fiddle to line up the holes, and what I don't want to do is bend the pin. Oh, typical, isn't it? There we go, it's in. So like I say, it needs it's a bit of a fiddle, but then the tailplanes are on, and they're a lot more secure than they would be before. So really pleased in how I sort of did that. Right, as I said, so pretty much, yeah, it's moving on at a pace. There we go. The final thing I mentioned is right at the back, the housing for the oh crumbs, what is it? The parachute housing, the brake chute. I've left that off. I'm going to paint that separately because that wasn't metal, that was camouflage, and that would be a bit of a tricky masking job. But there we go. So that is the F4, and I'm really enjoying the construction actually. That said, it's got separate leading edge slats and things like that, which is going to be a bit of a pain because I don't think really they were deployed on the ground, they were up. Likewise with the flaps and ailerons and stuff. So I want to put everything up because I want to preserve that plan form shape. But we'll have to see about that. Yeah, there we go. Right, so that's the Phantom. Really enjoying that, and yeah, exceeded my expectations in the fit wise. Other jobs that I'm going to do on that, I need to get the canopies done, I need to do all the ordnance, the undercarriage, etc. I've ordered the burner cans, which for some reason I'd forgotten to order. So apologies, Christian, if you're watching. It's going to delay that, but I've got to wait anyway for the to go home for the dark green. But there we go. That's not going to get finished before I go home for Ramadan, but it will get finished very shortly afterwards. That's that. Right, on with the news then. Not a lot of news this week at all. No new kits, but a little bit of news. So Infinity Models have released some test shots of their D3A1 Val in 32nd scale. They're the guys who did the Vampire in 32nd scale. Typical short run was the Vampire, a little bit rough in certain areas. Probably a little bit more of a challenge to build, but a 1/32nd scale Vampire, lovely. Not sure what this will be like, the refinement of that, but probably an improvement over the Vampire, I would say, because obviously companies learn and get better. So that's welcome. So that's probably not too far off. And then the only other thing to mention is young Phil Flory, he of Flory Models, has just released his thick wash. This is like a gloopy stuff that you can still airbrush. It will still go through the airbrush, but it's designed more for weathering. So in his video, his how-to video, he does a winter whitewash on, I think it's a Panzer IV, and how you can sort of do the chipping and stuff with that, and then some of the more browner tones, so your kind of earths, your mud, that kind of thing, and spraying it on there. So it looks like quite an intriguing product, especially for the armour modelers amongst you. Be interesting to get some of that and have a little play, I reckon. But anyway, so yeah, that's Flory's new product. So you can bet ISM are going to bring their own version out very, very soon. He says, tongue firmly planted in starboard cheek, metaphorically. But that's the yes, sort of like a sludge wash from Flory Models. Looks really interesting there. Right, there we go. Right, I've not been very well over the last week. Been sort of full of heads, full of sinus blah, which doesn't really bode well that much for flying. I thought I'd shaken off a cold, but it's kind of lingering a bit really, and it's gone into my sinus, which is a right pain in the hoop. So hopefully I'll be alright for next week. That said, absolute trooper that I am, I really have pushed along quite far with this, and it's been very, very enjoyable. So looking forward to getting back from work next week and cracking on in there. I definitely want to put the wings on so it looks like a Phantom. There we go. Right, there we are. I've pretty much run out of things to say. So good luck to all the Brits down there at the Formula 1. Looking forward to seeing that. We're back. It's very, very exciting. I've watched 2 episodes of Drive to Survive so far, and it's yeah, it's shaping up to be a good one. So looking forward to the coming season. Right, there we are. Waffling now. Thanks very much for tuning in. Keep your eye out on the channel for when the next videos drop. Not sure when they'll be, but hopefully not too soon. Not too far, rather. Hopefully they are going to be soon. There we are. Okay, thanks everyone. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.